Yes, Your Honor. I understand. Right. Protecting Matt, you say? From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course. The button and a knife. But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt that I had to protect him. This does account for everything. Well, I am the logical type. Finally seeing her true self. She is more nervous than a scared rabbit. If the defense can find no fault with this testimony, I am ready to make a ruling. We are gonna find something. Don't you worry. Please keep that in mind as you cross-examine, Mr. Wright. Looks like somehow everything has swung to the opposite end of the scale again. That just means I have to put my weight into this and turn her logic upside down. Alright, Phoenix, let's do this. Let's see where this is gonna lead us to. From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. My timer is being all finicky once again. My timer is skipping frames in the sense that it doesn't really show like, let's say 41, 42, 40, 43. No, it skips from 43 to 46 in 3 seconds. It doesn't show all the numbers. It happened in Zero Escape. Would you say that was your intuition speaking to you? Actually, why did I do that? I don't need the options here. Don't confuse my methods of reasoning with your own. Burn! You should get to the hospital and get that wound fixed, Nick. If you want to prove that someone did something, you need 3 things. 3 things? A motive, an opportunity to commit a crime, and finally, decisive evidence. And if you think these 3 things through, the answer becomes quite clear. You should have already known that, Phoenix. Well, they didn't teach that to us in school. At least, not from what I remember. And you, Mia, you died before you could teach us all these things. I mean, okay, those 3 things are pretty much basic stuff for detectiving and such, but yeah, you have been with us in trials to help us, but it's not the same as studying a book, which is definitely something that Nick really should have done by now. Did you hear that, Nick? Did you hear that? May I continue now? Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. So would you say this need came from the press conference? Yes. Do you know why Juan chose that event and that hotel for the conference? Because that was when he could cause the most damage to the public's beloved Matt on guard. And you knew this plan, didn't you, Miss Andrews? Yes. Because I was the one who set up the conference and prepared the costume. But I'm sure Mr. On Guard himself didn't know anything about the press conference. Oh, really? Can you show me any proof that he didn't know about the press conference? Anyway, the important thing here is that this information was not in your testimony. Yes, I agree. Miss Andrews, please correct your testimony if you please. Grasping at straws now, are we, Mr. Wright? It may seem like it, but this is part of our plan. It is as Nick said, speak first, think later. Actually... yeah, they actually modified the testimony. Let's press this. Has Mr. On Guard done something to hurt or betray you personally? Why do you ask? You were the one who helped Mr. Corrida with his press conference. And that event was supposed to bring down Mr. On Guard. Yet, you still helped out. Yeah, that is indeed a good point. I mean... Helping out with the press conference, sure, but helping him with the second costume would surely make you think that he was preparing something awful. So, unless he really wanted Matt out of the picture due to some bad stuff going on behind the scenes, why help Juan Corrida in the first place? The person on trial right now is Mr. Matt on guard, right? What the witness was thinking, helping the victim with this plan, is none of your concern. Oh, come on, Edgeworth. You want to find that out too. Why are you objecting to this? In any case, this means that the defendant had a motive to kill. Why do I keep doing this to myself? And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. But didn't you already testify earlier that Master Angard? Earlier that Mr. Angard was taking a nap in his room? Are you telling me now that too was a lie so you could cover for Mr. Angard? I'm not telling you anything of the sort. When I went to get him for the show, he honestly was sleeping. However, as to whether he was sleeping the entire time, that I cannot say. I was too busy setting up the stage at the time. I keep trying, but I cannot. But I can find no flaws with what Miss Andrews has said. I cannot say the same for some people here in this courtroom, however. Ouch. And the judge is glaring straight at Mia. At Mia? He's glaring at you, smart guy. Nick, how dare you? How dare you try to direct that to Mia? That's just rude. Own it like a man. You can hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprint on the knife could very well be a clever camouflage. Then, what about the button? The button? It's clear from the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought. And during the fight, the killer ripped the button from the Gem Ninja's costume. You're talking about this button, correct? That button was found in the pleats of Matt's hakama, isn't that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence. Ugh. Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I cannot stand the sight of a man who cannot gracefully accept his defeat. I can still look at me. With the nicest stare, yes. Oh. Sweetie, are you still mad at us? For that misdirection by Phoenix before? Miss Andrews, for Mr. Wright's sake, please add this information to your testimony. Alright. The button was torn off of Juan during his fight with Matt. Okay, this is the modified testimony. Okay, let's press this. And how do you know that? When the ends of the threads of the button and the costume were matched up, they are found to fit together perfectly. Or so I heard. Yeah, you heard that right. I've heard that before too. But why would Miss Andrews know about this case down to such a fine detail? Yeah, that is true. I mean, Edgeworth had him planned to have Andrews as the witness from the very start. However, she wasn't in the courtroom the entire time. She was outside, waiting for her to enter, right? In which case, where did Andrews know about this? I mean, it could very well be from Edgeworth, in which case, yeah, more than like... Yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking so hard on this. Edgeworth definitely told Andrews of this whole button and the thread matching up and such. He definitely told her before. Don't look at me like that. Just because I'm prepared and you're not? Yeah, I thought I had her this time for sure. If there is anything to trip her up on, it has to be here. But where and what? The button, maybe? But what you really did was stab the guy in the back, didn't you? And at the worst possible time. Who's to say she really stabbed the guy in the back, as you put it? This witness could have disclosed things about Mr. Angard at any time. Why then would she wait until there was a large audience before doing so? It's the same reason why Mr. Kurita planned such an elaborate conference. Miss Andrews wanted to cause Mr. Angard as much damage as she possibly could. This witness bears ill will towards the defendant. This isn't the Phoenix Wright wax philosophical. This isn't the Phoenix Wright wax philosophical power hour. Okay. And please stop slandering the witness. Witness? Okay. Again, part of my German from before is bleeding into Edgeworth here as well. As I expected, Miss Andrews' testimony seems pretty solid. Really? Because to me it sounded a little wishy-washy. Wishy-washy? Well, I guess we'll see if I press a little more. You should know this by now. But you'll need strong, decisive evidence to make her talk. Alright, Chief. I'm going to pin you down this time, Miss Andrews. Yeah, we pressed her long enough, but... Okay. You say that the button came off during the fight. Well, in that case, hold on, let me just see about something over here. Was ripped from his costume. It's covered in Koida's blood. Found in Angard's hakama. Nope. Nope. We have learned that there was a fight. Juan got strangulated to the point of death. And then at some point afterwards got stabbed. Like, if this button came off during the fight, then it should not have blood on it at all, Andrews. So, how come you're saying here that the button was torn off during his fight, and not after? Your Honor, that statement contradicts this evidence. It does? I don't see anything contradictory. Really? But it doesn't make sense. If the button has blood on it, then it would have to be the other way around. That it was the stabbing that did the job while they were fighting. Then strangulation came in afterwards. Like, huh? Really? Objection denied. Try to think before you make accusations, Mr. Wright. Okay. No. Hold on. There has to be something to this. Maybe I've chosen the wrong evidence. I mean, Nick said it too. That there was something fishy about this. About this whole thing. But it has to be where and what. Well, I'm thinking that it is right here and with the button. I mean, I cannot say that I really... He didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. That is technically correct. Nah, there definitely has to be something with the button. I know I'm right, goddammit. Unless I'm wrong, but it doesn't really make sense. Okay, how about the autopsy? It tells us that he was strangled to death, and then he got stabbed after death. And that is when the blood got on the button, which would mean that the button got ripped after the fight, not during. I mean... that's the only thing that I can think of that would contradict this. First was the strangulation, then the stab, which doesn't really connect with the button being torn off at all. Objection! This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states that the cause of death was strangulation by a scarf. Strangulation? The knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had already died. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off of the costume. When? After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly, which means it is impossible that this button was torn off during the victim's final struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in that fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There is no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off of the victim's already dead body. I don't understand. Couldn't we have arrived at the same conclusion if we shown that this button has blood on it? Meaning that it got ripped after the stabbing? Order! Order! What is the meaning of this, Wright? So what if the button was torn off the body after the victim already died? What does that change? Well, it tells us that Andrews lied in her testimony. I mean, that is the same old song and dance that we have been doing for years. What does it change? Fuck if I know. I mean, if it was ripped during the fight, I can understand that, but if it was ripped afterwards, for what reason? That is the question that we have to answer. Let me ask you one simple question, Mr. Edgeworth. Why was the button turned off? What purpose did that serve? Am I going through puberty once again? Am I going through reverse puberty once again? Or I'm changing into Larry Bird. What purpose? We now know this button was not torn off during the fight. So the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip this from the victim's body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it? Mr. Wright, does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with this button? What was it? Okay, well, thinking about it, it is quite easy. It was to frame Mr. Matangard. I mean, remember that the button was found in his hakama during the body search after the crime scene, so to pin the crime on Angard. There is only one logical reason for doing something like that. It was to pin the crime on Mr. Angard. There is no way anyone would put a bloody button in their own pants. That's right. Mr. Angard was set up. By the real killer, of course. I mean, technically that is true. I mean, why would Matt on guard, if he was the killer, why would he still have the button with him? I mean, why have the button in the first place? Why have it in his pants? Why did he still have that during the body search instead of getting rid of it? That definitely does make it a... And the real murderer is... Well, Mr. Wright, who in the world is the real killer then? Finally. I cannot believe I managed to bring this trial all the way up to this point. Phoenix, you cannot let your guard down yet. Not until the very end. The real killer, the person who planned to frame Mr. On Guard is... Wait a second, hold on a second. Nobody said anything about it having any fingerprints. There are no fingerprints found at the button. Nobody said anything about that. If this button was ripped by Adrian, then why aren't her fingerprints on this? Especially since we established that she had no gloves at the time because of the wine glass. I mean, to think that Adrian Andrews is the actual killer and that we have figured it out in just one day of trial. This sounds a bit too easy, but... I guess we have no choice but to say that Adrian did it. Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you! You are Mr. Koreeda's killer!
What?
Order! 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 Mr. Wright, this is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence that supports your charge? Any evidence? All of the evidence points towards Miss Andrews.
How preposterous. You cannot stick any of that on me.
I can't. I can I? Would you care to test me?
Then what about this knife?
The knife was used to stab the victim after he had already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion onto Mr. On Guard, naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could only be taken from his room. But still, if Adrian did it, then... If Adrian did it, why did it have no fingerprints on it? If there were no fingerprints of hers, then she should have had gloves on her. Which would explain the bloody button too, but... It totally debunks the whole thing that we had with the wine glass. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you.
Then, what about the button that was found in Matt's hakama?
This button was removed from the victim's body after he had already died. The only people who could have done so were the person who found his body, or the killer. However, if Mr. On Guard was the real killer, there is no way he would have put such incriminating evidence in his own hakama. That's true, but what about the fingerprints? The only person who could have put this button into Mr. On Guard's hakama is the person who went to wake him from his nap, which is you yet again, Miss Andrews. I see. What about the empty guitar case? That is also another piece of evidence that incriminates Miss Andrews. But this only has Korida's fingerprints. Oh my god, why the hell didn't I think about this before? We did say that she took the costume and got out, but that would have meant that she had no... That would have meant that she had to touch the guitar case with her fingers. That costume was used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was such a costume inside the guitar case? It could only have been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. That is true, And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews.
No, I...
Oh god, Edgeworth, help me out on this one. But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found in the guitar case. Exactly. Nothing on the guitar case, nothing on the knife, nothing on the button at all. So... And it was you who proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time. That's right. That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out that she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. So, to avoid having any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. So she could have used a tissue of some sort to hide the fingerprints. For the case, the knife, and the button. But if that's the case, why didn't she clean the wine glass too? Is it because she forgot? But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews purposely left her fingerprints on the glass to show that yes, indeed, she was the classic dazed discoverer of a dead body. I guess so. Ah! And to top it all off, there is this photo. A photo of the killer as they exited the scene of the crime. No reasonable person on earth can't believe this Nico Samurai is Mr. On Guard. He would be much too short for his own costume if it was him. Speaking of how tall people are, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature, are you not?
Please, stop.
Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I've got her this time. Miss Andrews?
I refuse to testify.
Huh? What was that?
There is a law. It says I cannot be forced to testify about something if it can incriminate me.
What? Well, yes. You are absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination. By allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony can cause damage to themselves.
What?
What? What the hell does that mean? Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think to do on the spot. Pleading the fifth. Actually, thinking back to yesterday in Mr. On Guard's room.
Adrian Andrews. Yes? Think hard about what we just discussed. Understood? Alright.
That's it. And that's when Francisca planted this idea into her head. She must have told Miss Andrews to not testify if things look bad.
You did a good job proving everything up to this point, Phoenix. But there is still one thing you haven't done.
Something I haven't done? What's wrong, Wright? Are you finished already? Run out of evidence? What is so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sure you realize this as well, Jan. But everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless. What? Everything you have proven, is circumstantial. Circumstantial? That it's not conclusive. Yes, circumstantial. You have yet to prove a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Mr. Kurita. Miss Andrews, did you want to kill Mr. Kurita?
I believe this may lead to me incriminating myself, so I will abstain from answering.
But, Miss Andrews, if you do that, it will be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a huge reason why we haven't seen that many people do such a thing in the first place. In court. At least, not from what I have seen thus far. I mean... Maybe so. Or maybe not. There is nothing to prove it either way.
I mean, maybe there is something else to Franziska's plan than what we are seeing here. And given the fact that she's not here, we don't see that plan in full motion. We are only seeing Andrews trying to defend herself using this.
Besides, you don't even know what crime I would be guilty of due to my silence.
No! She's taking that defiant attitude again. Mia, what should we do?
Somehow, we've landed in the worst possible situation.
Ah, darn it. I think we have reached a certain conclusion at this point in time. Miss Adrian Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that she is the actual murderer has not been fully substantiated with solid definitive proof. But that's not true! In this situation, there is only one thing this court can do, and that is to declare a recess. It is tea time.
Oh. I was thinking you were gonna say that we should continue this tomorrow, but hey, who am I to complain?
Recess? I request that both the prosecution and the defense look further into this matter. And at tomorrow's trial.
Tomorrow's trial? But you said recess! That is like a 10 or 15 minute break or something.
Unless... Now, hold on a second. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me look at the dictionary for recess. Recess. Meaning. A period of time when the proceedings of a parliament, committee, court of law, or other official body are temporarily suspended. Example. Talks resumed after a month's recess. Fuck! Tomorrow? How come nobody told me that recess also means postponing the trial to a different day? I mean, I was always thinking of a break. Like, you know, school recess and such. We don't have a tomorrow. If we don't get a not guilty verdict today, then... Please wait, Your Honor. That's not necessary. The trial. Please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please, let the trial continue. If I don't get a verdict, then Maya... But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Now then, this court is... Objection! It is not impossible for this trial to continue.